Today we are going to look at the natural springs of Steamboat Springs, Colorado and their causes. There are over 150 springs here, but only a fraction of which have names and documented locations, while most of them have been neglected and forgotten. The springs are caused by a fault that was created when a subducting plate created upwards thrust and formed the Rocky Mountains 42 million years ago. The thermal waters originate at depths between 12,000 to 15,000 feet beneath the surface. Groundwater seeps into the earth and is rapidly heated along the fault zone and rises to the surface. Each spring has its own unique route from deep within the fault to the surface that determines their mineral content, which is why not one spring has an identical content to another. All of the springs are warm, but not all of them are hot, the hottest of which is the Heart Spring that fuels the heat for itself and many of the other pools at the Old Town Hot Springs. Part of the reason that the springs have different mineral content is because of, again, formations of the mountains. When the igneous uplift pushed the mountains into existence, they also rotated the crush that it pushed through, which I found well illustrated by the cover of the book Roadside Geology of Colorado by Halka Chronic. Luckily, with the help of some erosion, we can see these different layers at the surface today.
Behind me is the Rocky Mountains and also my backyard. This part of the Rocky Mountains has gone through multiple different phases, some of which even dating it back to the Precambrian era. It is one of the oldest parts of the Rocky Mountain chain, as you can tell with it having rounded tops rather than jagged peaks found on more southern parts of the Rocky Mountain chain. The uplift of the Rocky Mountains caused the fault line that runs through Steamboat that is responsible for all the springs in the area, as well as rotating some of the crust, leaving the oldest layers nearest to the mountains and the youngest layers farthest away. As you can see behind me, I'm standing near the base of the mountains, and there's granite, the oldest layer of the crust. And on the other side of the town, we'll visit Mako Shale.
For our next stop, we're going downtown to look at a crosscut of a road where we can get a really good sight of a middle-aged layer of the crust that's exposed at the surface. Right now, we are looking at Dakota sandstone.
Here we are on the adjacent side of this rotated piece of crust. In my hand I have some Mako shale. And as you can see, this entire hillside of this hill cut for the road is littered with it. This is the Lithia Springs, located a few blocks west of downtown Steamboat Springs. The milky waters of this spring have very high content of lithium. To many it is regarded to have very different health benefits, including being one of the top cures for manic depression. In the early 1930s, H.W. Gossard believed in the health benefits of this spring and made plans to bottle it and sell it in a bottle called Miracle. Growing up here, I've heard many rumors of some of the more adventurous locals jumping into this pool and even drinking this pool to their belief of its health benefits. This may not be advised due to this being not cured and also not thoroughly studied.
For our next stop, we're heading to the west end of downtown. Here, the fault crisscrosses the Yampa River and creates multiple different springs that are all within throwing distance of each other.
We call this park Far Park because of the overwhelming odor of this spring. This is the Sulphur Spring in downtown Steamboat Springs, Colorado. Native Americans believe this to have special curative powers, and animals such as deer, elk, black bear, and horses have a special fondness for this, and have often been spotted trying to come and take a drink of the water. This is the Sweetwater Springs located just barely outside of downtown. It was originally inhabited by multiple different springs, but a lake was created to hide all of them, and you can still see in different places where certain springs are still active. This is the Soda Spring, just about 100 feet away from the Sulphur Spring. It was long a favorite for travelers to come and get a free glass of lemonade, although unfortunately its flow has stopped with the introduction of the highway behind me. This is the Black Sulphur Spring, located just across the river from the Sulphur Spring. Its nature has naturally reduced it from making hydrogen sulfide into now making sulfur. That is what gives it its black inky paste. If you'll follow me just slightly upstream right here, we have a spring called the Steamboat Spring, which is very unique and possibly the most famous and important spring in Steamboat Springs. Many visitors of this town wonder how a mountain town could have such a unique name as Steamboat Springs. This is because of a man named James Crawford who founded the town. He came and set his land next to a quaking aspen located right next to this spring. As time went on, people noticed a chugging sound, as this spring used to be almost geyser-like, and that chugging sound reminded many of a steamboat. Unfortunately, as time goes on, a railroad was put into my right. This caused the geyser to no longer have characteristics of a geyser and stop spouting. This also caused the spouting noise that resembled a steamboat to go away. There are two springs called the Narcissus and Terre Springs. They're a bit more difficult to film as they're on a rugged cliff, but we're going to do our best. This is Iron Springs, originally enjoyed by the Crawford family, who are the founders of Steamboat Springs. Lolita Crawford, in her book The Cabin in the Medicine Springs, referred to this as the delicious iron lemonade.
This is a very unique geothermal feature called the sulfur cave. It is filled with such high levels of toxic hydrogen sulfide gas that would leave any person who entered the cave passed out after just a few breaths. In 2007, a team of researchers from Denver Museum of Nature and Science entered the cave with special respirators and discovered an odd red worm that has since been determined as a new species that may not be found anywhere else on Earth and potentially offers clues into alien life. There's a young volcano called Hans Peak that is about 50 miles north of Steamboat that is also contributing to the heat in the fault zone that has created all the geothermal features we discussed in this video. Here's a chart of all the different mineral contents in the springs. This might help explain the different routes that these springs took to the surface. The subducting plate that helped form the Rocky Mountains subducted at such a shallow angle to the continental crust that the uplift occurred much farther inland than normally expected.